Hey, welcome back to Day at the Dude Ranch, and boy, we got a busy day going on today. Last episode, I believe, I'm not sure which order these are going in, but I know we just recently did one where I took care of the fretwork on 5 different necks. That's right. So that was pretty cool. So now we're actually going to set one of those necks. Remember the knobboy? This one is actually getting a set neck. We're going to do that, clamp it up, get it out of the way. And we're going to get back to Eli's MS-24. Now this one is going to be sweet. Look at that. You got it. It's got a Floyd Rose going in with the D-tuner. The EVH D-tuner is on it. But as you can see, or maybe you can't see, but I can see, got a little bit of a spray look to it. It's got that, not quite orange peel, but it's pretty close. My clear gun's doing pretty good job of laying it down, but there's some pimples and dimples to take care of. We also have to take care of the back of this neck first, and then of course finish out the front end. So so this one's almost ready. A little bit of work on the fretboard, but mostly just on the back of the neck. Just get it nice and oiled up and ready, and then we're going to set that aside while we do a little buffing on the body. So stick around. It's going to be quite a busy day. Okay, well, first things first, let's get the holes in the headstock for the tuners. And you see what I'm using here is an overly priced little jig. It helps a little bit, but even with that, I did have a little tweaking I had to do. I've already modified the jig, but you'll see I have a little issue with the high E string. All right, so now let's get this neck set. Now to do that, we already know it's got a tight enough pocket. We don't need to make it any tighter, but we also know that when we were conditioning the fretboard, we did get a little bit of true oil in there. Not enough to hurt it, but at the same time, we want to make sure that it's nice and clean anyway. So I'm going to sand that even if I didn't get the oil. Let me sand that down just a little bit. Get it nice and clean. And this is why when it was all raw cut, we want it as tight as possible, because obviously by taking off a little material here, it is going to put a little more gap. And that's fine, because the glue will fill that gap. And that's okay, because the glue we're using is actually going to be stronger than any of the pieces of grain of that wood. And that's something to remember with your glues these days. I mean, they're strong. There's a reason that they are made to do what they do, and we all use them because they do it so well. This thing, this little block, this is just a piece of scrap. It's just perfect for inside there, but it's almost too perfect to the point that once I put it in there, I don't have a handle on it. Now let's try it this way. Now this is pretty clean and raw, even after all our patching. Okay, we just want to make sure we get this nice and ready. Get the bottom. Now we haven't done any conditioning to the rest of the neck. We'll do that when we do the whole body. I've done most of the shaping and sanding. This is like to a 100 grit, so I do have to make it playable. It's going to be getting a lot more sanding done. But if you recall from the massive fret day video, that all the frets feel really good. Got them all nice and shiny, leveled and crowned. That's pretty good. Let's check out our fit. You do need some type of a gap for the glue to fill. Now the way this type bond works is it's going to get into the pores of the grain on both ends. It's going to make a wicking effect, bleed into that, as well as a solid mass. It's a PVA, so it's very similar to what you would expect from resin. That it is going to actually harden and make a better material joint than the wood itself. And to help with that wicking process, I like throwing moonshine all over the place, as you can tell. Now, I don't smoke, but if you're doing this and smoking, God bless you. It's been nice knowing you. This stuff will light up. It is denatured alcohol. I nickname it moonshine because I get it in one of these big jugs. But it is pretty strong stuff. It's a great cleanser, but it's also a motor fuel, so that's one thing to remember, or cooking fuel. Okay, I've got a little bit of a gap there that I don't like, where somehow when I sanded at one point I turned it, but I'm going to fill that in at a later time. Okay, now that it's got a little moisture to it, that wood swelled up even more. So we're going to let that denat dry just a little bit while we get our glue ready. And this is where it gets real fun, real messy. I'm going to grab some clamps, get them ready. The great thing, you don't need a lot of clamping power here either. Moderate clamping is about all you need. I do want to use a caul. I usually just use a 2x4. Is great enough caul over the frets. Okay, so I'm going to have that one here. Usually I like a little something on the back side, especially something as when you got dealing with this soft Meranti. Even though we are going to carve that a little bit, I just like an extra cushion. I'm going to get a couple squeeze-it clamps and a couple grinder type clamps. Now this will work. Piece from our French cleat system that we're doing. That'll work just dandy. Okay. So now it's a matter of getting some glue in there. Now there's a couple dainty ways you could do this glue, and there's a couple real sloppy ways to do this glue. I tend to do something in the middle. Little popsicle sticks. And what I'm doing is I'm just spreading it into the cavity here. I'm making sure that I don't see any wood. Even though some of this is going to spread and squeeze, I just want it to be all nice and covered here. If it looks like a lot of glue, you're probably right. In most cases, you don't need as much glue as it looks. I know some guys will just bear in as much glue as they could possibly think it can handle and deal with the squeeze out later. And then some look like it hardly has enough glue at all. Again, that's where I like to go somewhere in the middle. That is probably going to be enough. Let me just get this. I like to let it sit and flow and see where it goes. I'm going to put a little extra in the back. Now, I kind of touched on it a little bit in the previous episodes, but I didn't touch on it a lot. Typically, when you're doing a glue-on set neck, especially if you're going to have a pickup right here, you can just have the neck go all the way through, and it's very common to have like a tail end here that gets carved down, and that your pickup goes right over it, and it's perfectly fine. You don't have to have this kind of a rest. I've been doing so many bolt-ons that it's just natural for me to cut the neck this way, even though when I originally cut it, if you go back to that first episode, my Mistake Making Monday episode, I had it there, and then for whatever reason my brain just took a holiday, and I took my saw, my crosscut saw, and just sliced it right off. So because of that, now I have to make sure that to get this to fit right, I had to make sure that I match the scope angle here with that, and it's just really bad way of doing things, but it worked. And again, I got a really cool video of me making a whole bunch of mistakes. So hey, you know, all in the arts and entertainment how to process the sacrifices that I make for you guys. Okay, that looks good. Oh my gosh, it looks so good, so clean, and yet looks well covered. I'm just gonna get a little more glue on the sides. It looks just a little too clean for my good. I'm expecting more squeeze out to come up out of there. So, which is silly of me to think that I have to go back and add more, because if I do get that squeeze out I'm expecting, that just means more cleanup I gotta do. So I'm creating more work for myself now, but I'm hoping that this will help keep the neck in there. The last thing I want to do is string it up, tune it up, and have the neck come back flying at me. Not that that's ever happened. Not to me. Can you imagine? Ugh. Can't imagine that happening at all. That would be a nightmare right up there with going to school in your pajamas. Okay, that all looks good. I've never had a problem with this. I know some guys say don't wipe it while it's wet because then you'll have a problem with stain. I've never had a problem. Of course, we're going to do some sanding on this. Now, I did mention I was going to put this in the flatbed sander and do all that. And I still haven't routed for the controls, but I'm going to actually just do this just with handheld sanders. I really want to get more intimate on that way. And so that's why I'm setting the neck now. So because I am taking a lot more meat off later, I am going to be sanding this. I'm not worried about it. Okay, first thing I'm going to do is just use a squeeze-it clamp. Just get everything held, and then I'll come back with the other clamps. Did I leave enough room? No, I did not. This little trick right here. Put the sponge there. And then we take this. How's that for 3D? Whoa! Put the squeeze-it clamp back here. Just so you could see just how much that actually covered. Look at the squeeze out right there. So by putting this clamp back here, it brought back the heel of the neck there. Now one thing you want to make sure when you're using wooden cauls that are raw wood, your squeeze out doesn't get down on them. That alone should actually be enough to clamp this thing. But because I sometimes wear suspenders and a belt. Well, here you go. All clamped up and ready to sit for a couple days while we get some other projects going and get this thing moving forward on the next video. Come on, check it out. Thank you.